they could watch film of us
I know.
doing that. I'm glad that they don't, because they would see us looking cluelessly at each other half the time we make an introduction.
There's a lot of upsides to having gone podcast instead of the video, the live video I used to do. Just like I say, you don't have to worry about if the camera's lined up. You don't have to worry about if the sun's in your eyes.
Or my favorite, does this angle get my double chin good enough?
That's mine too, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to going all audio here.
So, speaking of footage, the movie we're reviewing today is it's a twist on a found footage movie. Yeah,
it's kind of a weird, nebulous area, because it's not quite a found footage movie, but
it's not quite a mockumentary.
Yeah, it's this weird kind of, it is supposed to be that we are seeing things happening live as they unfold.
Right.
You know, as opposed to seeing it from a third person kind of once removed perspective.
So we figured what we might like to talk about today is mockumentary or found footage style films. We've talked documentaries before.
We have talked documentaries.
But today we're talking about like the fictionalized mockumentary style films.
Well, I also think that it's kind of interesting, especially for this genre, because there for a while the found footage film was like, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Like there in the early 2000s, it was like everything was a found footage movie.
Well, Blair Witch Project was the one that kicked it off with the found footage.
Yeah.
And then you had several anthology type found footage movies like VHS and like its different sequels.
They're still making those, I think.
Yeah, I think they are. So yeah, I think that it was, I can't think of one previous to that would be in the horror.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh, there is actually one. It's called, I'll have to think about it. You keep talking.
And then they did, of course, what I think was the best found footage movie was Cloverfield.
Right.
And I know Cloverfield is one of those very divisive films that seems like people either really love it or really hate it.
Now, remind me, was Cloverfield all found footage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the movie itself was all found footage, but then they had like these like real life game, I forget what they call them, real life role playing games, LARPs or whatever,
right,
where you could go and look for clues online. And there's this whole video series where this one guy kind of breaks down the entire game and all the stuff on fake, at the time, MySpace pages and all the background. So it gave you more background to the movie, or you could just watch the movie and just kind of get out of it what it gave you.
Right.
Which I think was actually kind of interesting. I'm not a huge J.J. Abrams fan, but
you do like that one.
But I do like that one, and I do think the idea of having that kind of taking advantage of the online community, which was just starting to kind of blow up and become a real thing, and getting them kind of on board with it. I thought that was actually all very clever. I never would have figured it out in a million years, but that's why you have YouTube videos of other people doing it.
Okay, so the one that I was thinking of is an Italian film called Cannibal Holocaust, and that actually came out in 1980.
Okay, I know that one.
That one is, and it's famous for being widely banned in most places.
Yes. It is so.
And they have animal abuse that they show on screen, and it's very racist.
Well, because the guy, I remember seeing a thing on that one on Movie Bob's channel for Schlocktober, and like the guy went and like some of the animal abuse was like actual footage of the locals, preparing food, and whatnot. So he filmed it and just put it in the movie like it was
animal sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. So So,
Paranormal Activity is another big one.
Yeah.
that was found footage. I think it kind of merged out of found footage, like in some of the sequels.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so, and there's a lot of films in the horror genre that contain some level of found footage, like clips of it, without it being the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, very common in the horror genre.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any
There was one I remember. It's not quite a horror movie, but it was a found footage superhero movie called Chronicle.
Okay.
Where these 4 kids like find this meteor. I don't know why I pronounced it like that.
Meteor.
And it gave them superpowers, and of course one of them goes psycho with it, and the other one has to fight him, and like that one, while an interesting premise,
right,
it kind of underlined what the big problem with found footage movies are. And why I think ones like Cloverfield are kind of superior is that Cloverfield didn't feel the need to tell you everything.
Right.
And find some way to work that into a guy holding a camera. Whereas that one was trying to have a complete narrative and had to keep concocting these bizarre, unrealistic reasons why people were still... There's a scene where the good guy and the girl that he has a crush on, he knocks on her front door to talk to her, and he's got his camera up filming it. She opens the door with her camera up filming it.
Oh, right, you told me about
it's
that.
It's like, why are you doing this? Why would you be doing this? You know?
There's also some science fiction movies that do the found footage. I think of District 9.
Yeah.
Is one that did it. I almost want to say the one we watched recently about the alien invasion was had a lot of found footage elements.
Which one that we watched about the alien invasion?
Where the girl's all alone in her house.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that one's really found footage. Though I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a common thing in the horror genre, and like I said, though, this movie does combine some mockumentary aspects to it too, which, like, mockumentary has really kind of spanned more genres than found footage has.
I think you're right, though. I do feel like most of the mockumentary ones I remember are all comedies.
Okay.
You know, not like the Christopher Guest Library, the Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, I forgot Drop Dead Gorgeous was a mockumentary. That is so good.
You know.
That movie is so good. Yeah, I would say so. So let's talk about Christopher Guest is the biggest name, I think, in mockumentaries. Spinal Tap is the first one I want to say.
Well, that one, I don't know how you count them, because that's actually Rob Reiner's. Even though it had all the people from the Christopher Guest
Did
films.
Rob Reiner write that one?
Yeah, he wrote and directed that one.
Okay.
And then yeah, Christopher Guest went and did, you know,
Waiting for Government.
Yeah, Best in Show, Mighty Wind.
For Your Consideration.
But that one wasn't done in the mockumentary style.
It wasn't?
No. Which is why I think it's not quite as good as the others. That one's done as like a straight movie, but it's not. It's still done in the improvised dialogue kind of way, but without the found footage or the mockumentary style. It doesn't feel quite as authentic.
Really?
At least in my opinion. You know. So yeah, so those are the big ones I always think of when I think of mockumentary. What other ones do you think of outside of the comedy genre? Because I have a hard time thinking of it.
You know, I'm trying to think. I will say, in that comedy genre, there was a TV show. Fred Armisen was mainly the one behind it. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to remember it. But it it was an hour-long TV show, and each one was a different take on a different kind of documentary. So, gosh, Documentary Now. It was called Documentary Now, and apparently they're still running seasons of it on and off. Fred Armisen, Bill Hader, Seth Meyers, and Reese Thomas created it, and like it has all kinds. Like it takes on even like the oldest documentaries up to present day documentaries and does parodies of them, and it's very entertaining.
You know, it's interesting because the mockumentary style was very prevalent in TV.
Yes.
With The Office.
And it still is. Still is.
Oh yeah, because Abbott Elementary is done in that.
It is.
In that style.
And What We Do in the Shadows is still running, and it's done mockumentary style.
Yeah, and it did, Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And Modern Family, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the Muppets TV show.
Yeah, that amazing Muppets show that only got one season, which I'm very sad about, even to this day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was completely unfair because that was a really good show.
That was hysterical.
But it also goes back like into the 90s. The Trailer Park Boys were a mockumentary.
Was it Reno 911, the parody of Cops?
Yes.
Was
Reno
done,
911.
Yeah.
That was definitely, yes it was. Let me see. I'm trying to look up some more. I'm trying to see if you're correct that they're basically all
it seems to me like the comedy fits the genre better because you have to be very careful with a dramatic subject matter because you don't want people actually thinking that it's real.
Right.
Like I remember like if you want to go all the way back to the very first mockumentary style, Orson Welles' The War of the Worlds.
That's true.
And I have always maintained that the reason why there has not been a successful War of the Worlds movie is because they should do it in that same style. That's one that should be done mockumentary or found footage style. But anyway, what I was kind of getting at is when they were advertising Independence Day way back when it first came out.
Okay.
They did a Fox special on it, and the first part of the Fox special was a news report and doing news report like the flying saucers had just appeared.
Yeah.
And it was very well done.
So we're going to talk about fake documentaries here in a second, pseudo documentaries.
Okay.
I will say I did just look it up, and Christopher Guest co-wrote Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
So it's still a Christopher Guest one, and also a more recent one that would be mockumentary style is the show Kunk on Earth, which is
never heard of it.
Well, you've seen some of the TikTok sounds.
Oh.
It's like a woman doing a nature documentary, and she's British. It started on BBC, but or like a history documentary, but it's all like fake.
Okay.
So, but yes, the other side of this is the pseudo documentary, and one that sticks out of my head. First of all, like you said, the one with the Independence Day one.
Uh-huh.
But there was also the one we've watched about the Rocky fight.
Oh yeah, like these are all short ones, like the 30 for 30s. What if Rocky 4 really happened?
Right.
Or what if Angels in the Outfield really happened?
Yes, those are super funny.
Those are. Rocky just wanted to retire. He wanted to spend time with his family and his robot, like a normal person.
But you were talking about the newsreel that appeared with the Fox News. Orson Welles did that.
Yeah.
There was one with his Citizen Kane movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like there is part of that too, and also with Mr. Arcadian or Arcadin.
Arcadian.
Mr. Arcadian, which has a pseudo-documentary prologue as well. Also, the Year Without a Santa Claus, did that and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer start with fake newsreel.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But those are more like storytelling tools, more narrative ways to get exposition across, less of the whole movie being done in that style.
Let me see.
Because the art of having the TV or radio give exposition is time honored.
In 1965, a man named Peter Watkins made a pseudo-documentary called The War Game, which was about a fake nuclear bombing on England, which was so realistic that they would not broadcast it.
Oh, dear.
And it won an Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature.
Oh, okay. Which is interesting because it's not a real documentary. So
exactly.
Don't know how. If I was an actual documentarian that year, I'd be like, hey, wait a minute.
So another one that I think of was, so there's been some that were used in different advertising campaigns, but there was one, I'm trying to find the name of it. There was one several years ago that was a documentary where they said they found a mermaid. It was on Discovery or Sci-Fi, I can't remember which channel, but it was that they found this mermaid and there was like computer altered, like generated footage of this mermaid creature swimming around that they basically, it's like a lot of people really believed that they had found this mermaid creature in the deep sea, and they were really ticked off about it.
They did another one, kind of in the style of They're Walking with Dinosaurs. But they did one about dragons.
Right.
Like Patrick Stewart narrated it, where they actually pretend like someone found the fossilized remains of a dragon.
Yeah.
And they start talking. And what's interesting about that one is they go into the quote-unquote science of how this would act if a dragon existed. How could it fly if it was so big? How does it produce the flame and all of that? And they actually came up, you could tell that the scientists involved were having a great time kind of running these theories and kind of making up, like the fact that the dragons would have to have hollow bones like birds do.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, they did one of those. I've never seen it past the time I watched it originally.
There is, so like I said, there was the mermaid one. Around the time that they did Sharknado, they did some advertising that was like fake Sharknado mockumentary stuff.
Another show that doesn't get a lot of play that was done in the mockumentary style is Life's Too Short.
I don't know that one.
That is of course you don't know it. It's a Ricky Gervais one, but it was co-created by Warwick Davis.
Oh.
And it's a fictionalized version of Warwick Davis. If you don't know, he's a little person actor.
He played Willow.
He played Wicket. He played Flitwick. Basically he was the most prominent little person actor until Peter Dinklage came along.
Right.
And it was this fictionalized version of his life, trying to like get acting roles and.
Oh my gosh, I did see some of that.
That's a really well done one.
And I did enjoy what I watched, even though I hate Ricky Gervais.
I know you do, honey.
Another mockumentary movie that we reviewed recently was Theater Camp.
Yes, yeah, that was a mockumentary.
So that's like a whole different new generation coming in and doing the mockumentary movies.
Yeah.
So, this movie, though, that we're going to be talking about is not going to be nearly as cheery as Theater Camp.
Or as interesting.
Hey! We will disagree. We promise you every week that we will probably disagree on something, and we definitely are going to.
I think so, yeah.
So, come back, stay tuned, and we will chat about the devil in late night TV.
Or is that the name of it?
No, I just spun it around to make it more interesting.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, this movie is Late Night with the Devil.
Okay, see, the only reason I said that is because I have been trying to remember the order of the words for the title of this movie for the last several minutes, and been like, the devil in Late Night? The devil in Daniel Webster? No, what is this? You know,
Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah.
Now, did you have was this on your radar at all?
Absolutely not. I had not heard a single lick about this. I had not seen any trailers. I had heard absolutely nothing. It was we were going to do a family movie day.
Yeah, for Easter break.
And our oldest,
yes,
basically kind of determined it was going to be this film. You know, basically got everyone on board with it.
And then she slept through the whole thing.
Yeah, she went and she fell asleep.
What can we say? We took her to Red Robin beforehand, and it had a recliner.
It was like, really? No, you wake up and you watch this with the rest of us.
No, she definitely slept through the whole thing.
So yeah, this one was not on my radar at all.
And you can't really be blamed for that. It is an independent movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fully independent. Showed last year at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
This movie has 6 production
oh my gosh,
6 production companies involved and 5 distribution companies involved.
All I could hear watching it was the CinemaSins guy going, 40 goddamn seconds of logos.
I mean, it really was. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, after the 3rd one, I was like, we should have counted all of these.
Yeah, and you are just gonna sit there going, okay, this time the movie's starting, and nope, another company. All right, now it's gonna nope, that's not it either.
So yeah, it's one of those movies that you almost want to watch because it worked so hard to get made.
Yeah, it really did.
Like, when you have that many production companies and distribution companies, you worked your butt off to get this movie.
Well, and you can tell, that's something I want to say about this one, is that you can tell that the people involved really loved it.
Oh, yeah.
And were really passionate about it. Everybody who got mad at me for bashing Love and Tyranny seems to forget that I gave that movie credit for that you could tell that the people involved really loved it.
Right.
You know, so yeah, this had to be a labor of love to get this, to go through that many companies.
So the concept is that this late night host in the 70s is trying to compete with Johnny Carson. He's falling in the ratings, falling. And in order to boost his ratings, on Halloween night, he invites a girl who was part of a devil-worshipping cult and who is purported to be possessed, and the psychiatrist who works with her and wrote a book about it.
As well as a
cynic.
A well-known skeptic who was a former magician.
Yes. And a psychic medium.
Yeah.
So it's like a paranormal, like supernatural Halloween spooky. Oh, tiny horse. Spooky thing to boost his ratings. Now, like I said, the beginning of this movie, the first 5 minutes maybe, is done mockumentary style, talking about his rise, how he got started in the business, his relationship with his wife, who was an actress, but then had gotten lung cancer the year before the events of the movie and died. And how, like, he wasn't going to come back to late night, but then he does come back to late night, and now he's trying to get his ratings back up.
It also covers something that you found very interesting, that he was apparently part of this secret society for wealthy, powerful men that would meet in the woods and rumored to undergo dark rituals and shit.
Arcane rituals is what they call it.
Arcane rituals.
Arcane rituals.
And the mockumentary opening is not only there to give you exposition, but kind of says what you're going to see is that episode, that infamous episode,
and the uncut footage,
and some background and some backstage footage.
Right.
So the film itself is kind of like you're watching the actual episode.
Right. So you have the parts of the episode including the graphics.
Yeah, like the title cards,
Yes.
you know.
And then when they go to commercial break, because it's a live show, it's black and white footage as if somebody was following them with a handheld camera.
Which wouldn't have existed back then.
Right.
But
so, and we'll get to that part in a minute.
yeah.
About the logistics of it. But you have a guy who's kind of been cropping up in lots of things, but he's been around for a long time as our lead. David Malshane.
I don't know.
have no idea. Part of the problem might be that no one can pronounce his last name. David Malshane, he was in the Boston Strangler thing we watched.
Yeah, he was.
He's been in the Ant-Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he is the lead in this, which is probably the first thing I've seen him as the lead in.
Yeah, me too.
And like most of the rest of the people in this movie, the narrator is Michael Ironside, but other than that, it's a lot of not very well-known people. Laura Gordon, Ingrid Torelli, Georgina Haig, Faisal Bazi, Ian Bliss, like...
Yeah, this isn't one of those ones where there's like... This is clearly a lot of up-and-coming actors or character actors or small-time actors, all kind of looking for that movie that's gonna... And I gotta say, the acting is very good.
It really is.
Like, this is and I think the film benefits from this lesser-known cast.
It does.
Because you don't have the added distraction of, oh, look, it's whoever pretending to be, you know.
So, and that's the other thing, too. It's not like they're basing this on a real person. It's just influenced by it.
Yeah.
You know, and so you've got, you know, Jack Delroy's the host. You got Max, his sidekick band leader. Mm-hmm. Gus. That was Gus.
Gus, yeah.
You've got the skeezy producer. You got the audience members. So...
I think the thing I want to touch on right away, and you already mentioned it, is, like you said, this movie clearly, the people involved in it had to love it to really go through what they had to go through to get it out there.
Yeah.
And you can see that love all over this. Like, this is somebody's passion project.
Like, it is so, like, everything, with the exception of the black and white backstage footage, I would say. Everything else is so on point for era.
Yeah.
Like, the color, the graininess of the film, the title cards, the way people dress, everything.
Especially stuff like the way people dress. I find that the further a time period gets from being current, when you set a movie there, people tend to go kind of overboard with the costumes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, in the 70s, everyone's dressed like a hippie, and this looked real.
Right.
Like the hairstyles, just everything was very lovingly recreated, and I think that is one of the things that caught my interest right away, is that they were going with this gimmick and they were going full tilt.
Right. Yeah, I would say so. So the concept, like the meat of the story is, you've got the cynic Carmichael, who is just like, none of this is real, they're faking everything. And then you have this girl who, like, they talk her into taking on the possession, or like letting the demon come out to talk to them. And then you have this very fascinating little, like, possession moment, which was not very long, honestly.
No.
The possession part of this was probably just a couple minutes long.
Yeah.
But very engaging, like levitation, the face changing, the crazy voices, and then you also have the guy trying to debunk it, and he ends up hypnotizing the audience.
Yeah.
And so you really kind of are not sure for a lot of the movie which way it's going to go. Is it going to go that they are faking this and pulling it over on everybody, or is this actually real?
And you're not, I think the other thing that's great is you're not sure what Jack, the host, really thinks.
Right.
Like at the beginning, and I think it's very clever the way they pace everything, because they start things out with the medium.
Right.
Who is clearly doing, I forget, what was the guy's name who did Crossing Over?
Oh my gosh.
Do you remember?
I can't remember.
I was trying, but the guy who would get the, I'm sensing a P. Is there a P in the audience? Peter, Petra, Polly, okay. Yeah. You know, he's saying, it's someone close to you, they're, you know, that whole very clearly a con kind of thing, and they start with him.
But then there's another one that doesn't feel like a con at all.
Yeah, exactly. They ease it in.
And then there is definitely, it feels like some sort of supernatural reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they do escalate it. And that guy, the guy who plays Christo, he was pretty astounding too.
Yeah.
Because he did really well this thing of like the escalating tension and distress that he was going through, where you're all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, how long has he been that sweaty?
Yeah, and again, I think that's something the film did incredibly well.
Right.
Was just the pacing, the gradual build. It wasn't trying to shove everything at you all at once. It was fine with the, is this really happening? Is this not? You know, how much does everyone believe? And I think it for the most part, it was working for a long time. And it got me into it.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to enjoy this movie in the slightest.
Right, because you don't like, okay, so basically, to me, this movie is almost like an A24 film that is about exorcism, which is right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
As if there was like, it's set in the 70s. It was like they said, which movie will Rebecca like? And they made it.
Yeah.
But you don't like any of those things.
I'm not a big horror movie fan, and
No?
and especially I'm sorry, I find possession movies boring.
Which is hilarious.
They all seem to be exactly the same.
And I find them fascinating.
So,
because, yeah, like, I grew up, and it's a difference of background, too. I grew up, you know, very, very, very religious, and until, you know, the age of 20, I believed that demons were a real thing. So, obviously, possession movies, like, I believe that was something that could really happen. So that's going to hit me differently than it's going to hit you.
Yeah, so yeah, I was not expecting to get into this, but again, the loving detail that they did with it, the performances, the escalation, I was there. I can't say I was ever completely bowled over, but for, I'd say 90% of the film, I was like, all right, this is really interesting. I like the way they're doing this.
So we get down to the end, and our climax happens, where, you know, the demon comes out to play hardcore.
Yeah.
And this is where it loses you.
Yes.
So it stops being found footage, it stops being the master tape, and it kind of goes into the head of what Jack is experiencing. You're going into Jack's head.
Yeah. So it goes from being a third-person omniscient viewer, even like a television viewer, to a first-person perspective.
And it's him going through all these flashes of in the grove and with his wife dying and all of this. And then, you know, it gets to the point where, spoiler here, if you don't want to know this little bit of information, please skip ahead a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we get to the end, and his vision is of his wife on her deathbed, and he has to take this ceremonial dagger and kill her to put her out of her misery. To me, the implication of that was that he made a sacrifice that he was going to, like, sacrifice. He would be willing to sacrifice anything for his fame.
He would sacrifice her in order to.
Right.
Yeah, because the implication they try to give you is that at one of these
Grove meetings, he basically made a deal with this. I'll give anything to be famous, or give anything to achieve my goal, and the price was his wife. Right.
Whether he was aware of that or not, when he said that, is up for debate. It's ambiguous, which is fine. But the basic implication is that he sacrificed his wife for fame.
Right. So, and there's some visions along the way that kind of give you that indication.
Yeah.
And then when he wakes up, it's not his wife he stabbed. It's Lily, the girl who was possessed.
Yeah.
And that's what ends the possession.
Yeah, and that's where the movie ends, with him coming out. It turns out, and it makes it look like he killed everybody on stage, and the cops are coming. He hears sirens.
Right.
And yeah, so that's how it ends.
And that was really that was really the sticking point.
That's where it lost me.
Because I would have definitely preferred to have left all of that inner stuff up for debate, and have him just kind of go staticky and then come back and he's stabbed her.
Yeah.
And then have a little bit at the end with the documentary style again, something when the police showed up and they found him, and then he ended up getting sentenced to life in the mental institute. He was never sane again,
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that we talked about it in the intro, and I think this is kind of the problem, is that it went with the chronicle issue of feeling like it had to explain everything.
Right.
Or feeling like it had to give a big payoff. As opposed to, say, again, Cloverfield, which was you never get within the movie an explanation where the monster came from, why it was there, who was responsible. You don't even know if the bombing at the end worked.
Right.
And I think this film, and again, we talked about this when we first came out of the theater, was this the way it was written, or was this one of the mandates of one of the 27 production studios that had their hands in it?
Which is entirely possible.
Because I honestly feel like that ending wrecked it.
Well, it was incongruent with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And that it did feel like it was a blip in an otherwise, I would say, an otherwise perfect film for me.
I'm not going to say perfect, but I'm going to say interesting and more. And again, because up until then, the little things they did, like the girl, playing Lily.
Yeah.
Just the things they did of her always looking straight down the camera.
Right.
They're doing a shot, from camera one, everybody else is looking, over here, and she's looking down the barrel of the other one. She always knows which camera is on, and she's not, and it's not even a thing that's in center frame. She's off to the side.
Right.
So you notice her or you don't.
Right, and little things this guy, there's a guy in a skeleton costume that just keeps popping up in the background.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of little bits like that.
Yeah, and that's great. Those were all wonderful. That girl just staring into the camera was more unnerving than any of the stuff they did at the very end that was supposed to be the real horror, of the demon coming out and killing everybody.
Girl, she did an excellent job.
She did. She did a really great job.
She had a creepy sweetness.
Yeah.
That was not the girl in the ring or any of that. She seems like a normal, happy kid, but then there's something disturbing.
Yeah.
Also.
And I don't know, just the whole thing at the end, just, maybe I'm oversaying it to say it ruined it, but I'm saying before that happened, I'd be like, yeah, I'd watch this movie again. And after that, it's like, I don't know if I'd want to watch this movie again because of that.
Interesting. Oh. Okay, so anything else you wanted to point out about it?
Again, we were talking about the backstage.
Oh, yes.
Stuff.
So it would have been, for me, I would have preferred the camera to stay rolling and just had it seem like they were just off camera, but you could still hear them talking.
Yeah.
The way it kind of followed them honestly gave kind of Oppenheimer vibes.
A bit, yeah.
You know, and yeah, it was a little out of tune with it, but I did like that it differentiated between this is, live action, this is backstage.
And I liked that too, but I think you're right. I think playing it more like the cameras were still rolling, but you're getting people just kind of off to the side, or you're getting half of a conversation. But following them around, again, you would not have been able to do that very well with a handheld camera in the 70s. Those handheld cameras were massive.
So, I want to hit on the fact that the research that that people did for this was pretty insane.
Oh yeah, you did some research on this. Tell us about.
Just about how a television studio would have run at that time, and the big players and whatnot. But also that I had never heard of this concept of the Grove before, and apparently it's based on this actual club of wealthy men that exists called the Bohemian Club that holds basically yearly gatherings in the woods in California. And like you can go online and look at the Bohemian Club, and there is pictures of like meetings in the 70s with Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon in attendance. Like, it is an actual thing that exists.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think that the effort, and like we've said it a million times, the effort and thought that they put into this movie just shows like how dedicated they were to this.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
Not that I can think of. All right. So, final grade for you for.
Oh, I gotta give it an A-.
Really?
It would have been an A+ if that ending had been different.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like I'm telling you, it was like they looked into my brain and said, "This is the movie that Rebecca would watch."
Okay. Well.
Mm-hmm.
So we are very much going to disagree on this one.
Okay.
Because I'm going to give it a C.
Oh.
I'm giving it a C. And I kind of hate doing that because it was a very fascinating film, and they did a lot of great stuff with it, and there's a lot of things about it I liked, but even if the ending was different, it probably wouldn't have gotten past a B for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you're not, like you said, not a horror fan.
Yeah.
Not a possession fan. So all of those things are going to come into play.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I felt that ending really destroyed it for me. So
if you like horror movies, and especially quirky horror movies, this should be right up your alley. So yeah. So
there you have it. So go check it out and decide for yourself. You've got two radically different opinions here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you gave it an F.
No, I didn't hate it.
Just didn't like it.
No, didn't really like it. So okay. Anything else to say before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
Alrighty, so we are going to wrap up. Thank you, my love. As always, you make every movie-going outing an adventure and a wonderful time.
Except for Queen Bees.
Except for Queen Bees. No, I still liked doing that with you, even though the movie was terrible. We're never going to let the oldest pick the movie again.
Oh, yeah, right. This is her senior year. She makes all decisions.
or one of us has to keep elbowing her and going, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
I tried. Okay, I tried to wake that child up.
So
she was gone.
But yeah, so thank you all for listening. Thanks for coming along. And as always, drive safe. And we will see you at the movies. I forgot the line. I forgot my closing line.
7 years.